Hello folks, Greg Stern here. I promised I would show you multiplayer and Telepath tactics, and here we are. Let's go ahead and start a local match, but first let's lower the music just a little bit so you can hear me more easily. Very good. And let's go ahead and start a local match. So first things first, there are a ton of customization options for multiplayer matches in Telepath Tactics. First, you will notice the map dropdown. This auto-detects any custom maps you've created or downloaded and automatically loads them, complete with a nice little preview picture of the map. Pretty cool stuff, I think. Let's go ahead and select River of Fire. That's probably my favorite map in the game right now, just because there's lava and destructible bridge tiles and all kinds of fun stuff. Let's see. Second option, you will notice free-for-all or teams. You can have 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, or a free-for-all. I don't believe I've done a recording of a 2 versus 2 map, or 2 versus 2 match, I guess, is how you would say that if you were speaking English correctly, so let's select that. Game type, Last Man Standing. There's also Generals, which is like Last Man Standing, except that you are trying to kill the enemy general and protect your own. We are going to avoid that one for now. Capture the flag is exactly what you might expect capture the flag to be. You have a flag, your enemies have flags, you want to grab your enemy's flag, bring them to your flag, capture it, get a point. In capture the flag, you can set how many points you want to have to win. If you're insane, you can play to 99 points. 1 is generally a pretty enjoyable, close, not too long match, rather. I keep saying map when I mean match. Whatever. You can also, in Capture the Flag, you can also set a respawn rate if you want characters to respawn to force you, basically, to win by capturing the flag and not simply by killing the enemy's army. That's up to you. We're just going to go with a straightforward last man standing match here. Army constraints. I mentioned this a little bit in response to a comment on the Kickstarter page. There are a lot of different options for army constraints. And basically this is just what constraints you have when selecting your army. So none is basically anyone can create any army they want. You can have an army of literally 1 character, your opponent can have an army of literally 24 characters. Totally up to you. Make it as unbalanced as you want, that's your call. Equal numbers is a little bit more balanced. Everyone still creates their own army, but everyone has the same number of characters in their armies. As a general rule, the classes are balanced, so that none is necessarily more powerful than any other. Some are going to be a little more useful in certain situations, but that is just a natural consequence of all the units having their own unique battlefield roles. So that is my official stance on that. Of course, I will be continuing to balance the characters as development continues, and after the game is released, to ensure that there are in fact no unit imbalances of that sort. Probably the most balanced way to go, the way to ensure there are absolutely no disparities, is to go with identical armies. You create one army, every player has that army. So whatever the loadout is, like say 2 swordsmen, a bowman, a healer, and a stone golem. That is the army composition for every player. Pretty hard to complain about balance under those army constraints. Random armies. The game just straight up generates random armies for every player. And every player will have the same size army when it does that, but the unit composition is totally up in the air. You might end up with something totally imbalanced. It can be pretty fun to play like that sometimes if you want to challenge, or if you just want to go into a match not knowing what to expect. Finally, random and identical. This is if you want randomly generated armies, but you want to make sure it's balanced. Go with random and identical. Everyone will have the same army composition, but that composition will be determined at random. Just for fun, let's pick random armies. Ally pass-through. So by default in Telepath Tactics, and this will not be news to anyone who's actually played the public demo, by default Ally pass-through is turned off, which means that characters on the same team cannot walk through each other's spaces. I kind of like that. I think it adds an extra layer of strategy in terms of the positioning of your characters. You have to plan ahead a little more. You have to, make sure you have a route to the front line for anyone you want to get up there. But I understand some people don't like that, so there is an option to turn ally pass-through on, as you see in other games like Fire Emblem and Disgaea. Your call, folks. Your call. Fog of War. This game has a Fog of War option. I prefer to play with it off, particularly on a small map like this. There isn't too much mystery as to what lies in the Great Beyond. We're just going to keep it off. I hope you're cool with that. Turn time limit. As you can see, there are a ton of options for how long you want player turns to last. This basically configures a countdown timer on every player's turn. If the player exceeds their allotted time, the turn just straight up ends, they lose whatever other actions they were going to perform, and it gets kicked to the next player in line. As you can see, you can have no turn time limit. You can have a turn time limit as long as 20 minutes per player, if you're cool with playing a really long match, or if you're totally insane, you can have 15-second turns for every player. I don't recommend doing that, unless everyone's playing with, like, maybe 2 or 3 characters on a team. But, you know, I could also see that being kind of fun, if you just want to have an incredibly frantic match. So, there we have it, folks. We're going to have a 2 versus 2 on River of Fire, last man standing with randomized armies, ally pass-through off, Fog of War off, and no turn time limit. Let's do this, folks. Oh yes, one more thing. You get to actually configure the players. So, right now, we have 3 human players, and that's it. Since I don't actually have anyone here with me at the moment, I'm just going to set these all to CPU. So, as you can see, I will have Hal as a CPU ally. He will be the blue team. Green and yellow will be our opponents, the CPU players Shodan and GLaDOS. Let's go ahead and start the match. Alright folks, here we are. The match has started. The game has decided that I am going first. That is randomly decided at the start of every match. It has placed me in the bottom right. Let's see, where is Hal? No, that's Shodan. Hal is all the way in the top left, so I'm going to need to make sure I directly engage at least one of these enemies, or else Hal is going to potentially be in quite a bit of trouble. And in fact, I could end up being in quite a bit of trouble too, if both of these bad guys decide to go after me at the same time. So let's take a look at what we have. The game has given us 2 swordsmen. Swordsmen are sturdy units. They're really handy on a map like this because they can shove, and if you can shove, then you can shove the enemy into lava. Very, very useful. The enemy kind of one-ups us in that regard. They have a Mentalist. Mentalists are really, really pretty terrifying, frankly, on maps like this, because not only can they push your characters, they can also pull them, and they can do both at a distance. So if you screw up in your positioning, the computer can and will dump your guys into lava. And let me tell you, that hurts a lot. So we've got to be pretty careful in how we deal with Shodan here in the bottom left. In addition to the swordsman, we also have a Frost Sprigget. Frost Spriggets are pretty cool because they fly. As you can see, I've upped the character movement speed a bit. I believe I mentioned this already, but in options, which you can reach by hitting F1, you can change character movement speed between normal, double, and instant. I'm going to stick with double, because it'll speed things up a bit. So we've got the swordsman, we've got the Frost Sprigget, we have a Skiakineticist. Skiakineticists are one of the 4 types of elemental psi fighters. They use shadow attacks, which can soften and potentially slow an opponent's characters. Very, very handy. If you let them build up enough energy, they also get an AoE attack, which is pretty sweet. We would like to be able to use that. Just straight up. That would be a good thing for us to have. We also have an assassin. Assassins are interesting characters. They move really, really far. Like, really far. Like, up to 9 spaces. They can also leap over obstacles. I'll just show you that right now. We'll just undo those moves. And they get really, really high backstab damage. So actually, they're really good to use against characters like Spriggets, because Spriggets are weak to piercing attacks, and stab is a piercing attack. Also really good to use against healers, because healers are, well, frankly, they're just kind of weak in general, and assassins are pretty good at taking them out, given the opportunity. Oh, and speaking of healers, we have a healer. That is going to be really, really helpful. It means that we are not going to have to scavenge for random item drops in order to heal our characters during this battle. Unless I screw up and she dies, in which case we will have to scavenge. We'll just have to see. Meanwhile, I already pointed out the Mentalist, already pointed out the Sprigates, already pointed out the 2 Psi healers that Shodan has. Shodan also has 2 Bowmen. And that is actually potentially pretty problematic, because A, Bowmen have really, really long attack range, can hit the healer from pretty far away, and much like the Sprigate over here, our Frost Sprigate takes a lot of extra damage from piercing attacks. You can see up here, Pierce minus 40%. They take 40% extra damage from piercing attacks. As you might imagine, arrows are piercing, so we need to keep our Sprigate way the heck away from those bowmen until we are confident that we can take them out. So let's go ahead and set up a little wall here with our swordsmen. We need to make sure our swordsmen are facing the correct direction. We do not want them getting backstabbed or sidestabbed by anyone. I'm a little concerned that GLaDOS might decide to move down and sandwich me, which would really suck pretty bad. Not sure if there's a whole lot I can do to prevent that just now. I guess I'm just going to have to hope that GLaDOS decides, decide that GLaDOS decides to engage with Hal and not to come after me. And I think that is going to be it for this turn, folks. As you can see, I'm leaving this space open, hoping that the enemy sends someone. Actually, I don't think anyone can even reach that space yet. Ideally, someone will end up standing here, or maybe here, and I'll be able to shove them into the lava. That would be ideal. Although, the AI is generally pretty good about not just sticking characters over in spots like that on this map. One thing the AI is not good at is dealing with characters that are not strictly offensive. Right, you might have noticed that the AI sort of stupidly just went ahead and stuck his healers right on the front lines there, coming after me. Not a good idea, just in general. In case you're wondering, by the way, why that Shadowling dodged that attack from the Lizardman, that's because the Lizardman was blinded. Blinded characters tend to miss attacks, but of course miss isn't a thing in this game. Instead there's just dodging. So if a blinded character swings at you, you are very likely to dodge it. Meanwhile, I have to say, Hal is doing an awfully good job here of holding his own against these enemies. Even if he did just backstab his own Black Sprigate, that's okay, because Black Sprigates are resistant to shadow attacks, which is fair enough. Which is what this Black Sprigate up here uses. So there you go. Not a bad move. He has done some pretty hefty damage to Shodan here, which is going to make actually this a lot easier for me. If anything, I should probably send my swordsman back up here to deal with GLaDOS, because this is the real threat facing us right now. I think I can leave the remainder of Shodan's forces to Hal's tender ministrations, and hopefully we can do something about these bad guys over here. First things first, I really, really want to take out this Psi healer. She is cramping my style. So up goes the assassin. I'm going to leap, get behind her, and how much energy does she have? She has 7. That is plenty for a stab. So let's go ahead and stab this Psi healer. Boop! Down she goes. That's going to make this a whole heck of a lot easier, because I don't need to worry about these characters getting healed. Next, I think it would probably behoove us to try to freeze at least one of these characters. I think the swordsman might be a... No, I don't want to freeze the swordsman. What am I talking about? I want to freeze that gold Sprigate over there. Gold Sprigates, as you might have noticed, can blind characters with their breath, and I really don't want my characters getting blinded. So freezing this guy is priority number 1. There we go. I'm really glad that worked. Otherwise, that could have gotten pretty awkward. So, because this character is frozen, that character is not going to be moving again for at least 2 turns, which should be more than we need to mop up the rest of these enemies. Let's see. You know what I might do, folks? Swordsmen have an ability called Sprint, which gives them a 40% move bonus. I think I'm going to use that so that I can get my swordsmen over there and blocking off these enemies so they can't come after my Skia Kineticist so easily. Although, I'm only going to be able to get one of them up there. Well, it's better than nothing. We'll send the Skia Kineticist over here. Hopefully he will survive the combined attacks of this Spearman and this Swordsman. Ah, man. You know what I'd really like to do is Feint. Feint is another skill swordsmen have that strips an enemy of their counterattacks. I'm rethinking putting that Skia Kineticist there. I'm starting to think that was not a very good idea. Let's go ahead and sprint with this character as well. Just move another couple spaces up. And hopefully that will put us in an okay position moving forward. So, Spearmen get a counterattack, and they can actually throw their spear in extra space. Which means that if I had done what I was originally planning to do, move my Skia Kineticist up here, and cast Shadow Blast on this Spearman, there's a chance it would have slowed the Spearman, there's a chance it would have stripped his armor by afflicting him with Soften, but he would have counterattacked and dealt a lot of damage. Psi Fighters are... they're pretty squishy as characters go. They're not generally characters that you want to have going toe-to-toe with a Spearman, if you can help it. Swordsmen are really good for dealing with that because they can get rid of an enemy's counterattack with Feint. I think I'm going to try to do that next turn. Let's see how it goes. Meanwhile, continuing with the Psi Healer charge. Oh, there we go. Ooh, that hurt. Ooh, I was afraid of that. Bowman just took a shot at my Psi Healer. Enemy Mentalist just drained some health. Ow! Damn. That's no good, folks. Ooh, that Frost Brigade is in trouble. We are going to need to retreat and do a little healing. Thank goodness we froze that Sprigate, otherwise we would probably have a dead Sprigate on our hands. Meanwhile, Hal is getting the job done here, except with that lizard man who is still blinded and can't really do anything. Oh, hello! I love it when the AI does that. He just used his Mentalist to pull the enemy Psi Healer into the lava, and is now completely gratuitously physically attacking her. She would have died anyway. Oh well. Not my problem. So let's go ahead and deal with this Spearman now. Trying to think of the best way to handle this. We need to get our Psi Healer out of harm's way, but we have sort of limited resources for doing that. Oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to do that thing I was talking about at the very start of the match. We are going to shove this Spearman into the lava. So, two things happen when you shove someone into lava. One, they take 20 damage at the start of their next turn, and two, they can't do anything that turn except spend 2 energy to try to crawl out of the lava. So, that not only is going to deal a ton of damage to the Spearman, it is also going to remove him as a threat. As you can see in the bottom right of this little status window there, he is swimming, which means he cannot attack on his next turn, and he cannot move normally either. He is stuck just trying to crawl out of the lava, and that's about it. So let's see what we can do to deal with the remaining enemies here. Let's see. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can really do with my Sprigate to attack that Bowman, because the Bowman has a counter-attack, and any sort of piercing attack will deal a ton of damage to my Sprigate, as you saw with the Spearman before, so that's not ideal. Really what I want to do is move down a couple spaces let my Psy Healer heal my Sprigget here. Let's use Mega Shield. That heals a lot of health. Very good. Then we can use the remainder of our movement. We still have 4 spaces left to go. Use the remainder of our movement to come up here. And what will we do? I think we should use Frost Breath again. I think we have enough energy. Do we? Oh, no, we don't. That's unfortunate. Let's see. I suppose we could just do a normal claw attack against that Sprigget. I mean, he will thaw eventually, so might as well start working on him, I suppose. Meanwhile, the assassin is in a good spot to get a nice backstab hit on this swordsman. But before we do that, let's go ahead and feint. Try to strip this swordsman of some of his counterattacks. Yep, that's 1. Swordsmen get more counterattacks than other characters. They get 2, so you have to do 2 feints if you want to try to prevent them from counterattacking. Nope, that one did not succeed, so he has 1 counterattack left in him. We are going to draw that counterattack with the swordsman because swordsmen are much better at taking damage from other swordsmen than assassins are. And that also has the salutary effect of turning his back to our assassin. Let's go ahead and strike at it. Pretty good damage there. Nothing to complain about. Meanwhile, I think it makes sense to start damaging this Psy Healer here. Let's use a Shadow Blast. Unfortunately, no status effects took hold there. And the Psy Healer simply runs away and heals herself. Makes sense. Oh! Oh, you bastard! Okay, so what just happened there is the bowman used his split shot attack to attack at a diagonal, and in the process, kill my poor Psy Healer. That's what I get for making good AI, folks. That's what I get. The AI still has a ways to go, but it is pretty nasty. In certain situations, it definitely knows how to deal a ton of damage if you leave it any sort of opening at all. Alright, it's our turn again. I still have everyone except for the healer, so theoretically I could be okay. I'd really like to finish off this spearman. I don't like his face. Eye drops. That would be really handy for that lizard man, who is still blinded, but unfortunately the eye drops are nowhere near him. Let's see. What should we do? This swordsman is quite badly damaged, and I'm pretty sure that Percival Maplekeys here, Hal's Cavalier, can take care of this swordsman on his own. Let's see, what is in there? Thermal paste. Not the most handy for this particular situation. What is in here? Adrenaline pills. Man, no bandages. That's too bad. Alright, we will have to make do with what we have. We really need to kill this bowman. He is making a nuisance of himself. I am making killing this bowman priority number 1. Vengeance is mine! Alright. Next, we need to do something about this spearman. I'm not sure exactly what to do, though, because he is in a spot where I can't easily reach him. My Skiakineticist theoretically could have hit him with a Shadow Blast from behind, but the safer bet is to hit him from out of range. Of course, my Sprigget doesn't have enough energy to do that. That's also a problem. What should I do? Well, let's see. I suppose I could just retreat out of range for a turn or so and just let him recuperate a little bit of energy. That would make him substantially more useful going forward. And I don't think the enemy has anyone that can reach him and kill him, so hopefully that particular approach will work out. Meanwhile, my assassin also needs to rest because she is running low on energy and cannot leap over anything. And leaping is the one thing that would make her really useful on this turn, to get behind that swordsman and maybe send that swordsman to an early death. Instead, I'm going to retreat and let her rest. This spirit is a nuisance, but I'm not convinced that it's worth going after her. What might make more sense is simply just to work on this swordsman some more. Alright, that is it for me. Oh! That's another thing, folks. If you're playing a team match, the AI will treat teammates as if its characters are on the same team. Oh dear. Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's bad too. You know what, folks? I did not give this enemy AI enough credit. Hal is still hanging in there. Hal is not out of this game yet. Let's see. Well, I can at least kill off that swordsman. And considering that the swordsman is probably just going to push that cavalier right back into the lava again if I don't, I think that is probably going to be top priority. So down goes that swordsman. Oh look, it's an item sack with bandages. Leona Belmont here might be able to grab it next turn. That would be handy. Let's see, our Frost Brigade has 4 energy now. Not quite enough to make the difference, but let's see. One thing about spirits is they are very resistant to physical attacks, but they're also very weak to mental attacks. So I don't know if you can see up there, they take 30% extra damage from mental attacks. And meanwhile, they're 50% resistant to slashing attacks, which means our swordsman is not going to be effective at all. Theoretically, our assassin could deal a bit of damage with stab, but I really think our best bet is going to be to backstab her with a Mind Blast from our Skia Kineticist here. There we go, 16 damage, and down she goes with a one-shot. Eye drops. Do I need eye drops? No, I do not. That would be handy to get those focus pills. But one thing at a time, folks. You know what we really need to do? We really need to kill this this character here, this healer. She is making a nuisance of herself. I think that will be... Let's see, can this Shadowling get to my assassin? The answer is no. That's good. I think I'm going to just have my Sprigget over here finish off this healer, which means that it is now me and Hal against GLaDOS with just these 2 characters. Things are not looking good for the enemy. I'll have to see what they do on their turn. Oh no! Oh, I miscalculated. Oh, assassin, I hardly knew ye. And down goes the other Black Sprigget for Hal. Poor Hal, taking so many losses here. But not as many as GLaDOS is about to take. Actually, that's not true. GLaDOS is only about to take 1 loss, which is not nearly as many as Hal just took. Well, let's go ahead and deal with this Shadowling. The one thing about Shadowlings is they are not hard to kill. They are pretty squishy as units go. The main thing that makes them useful is that they have... Whoops. Didn't mean to use that. The one thing that makes them really useful is that they have very high movement, and they can teleport. So they are kind of like flying assassins without the crazy backstab. and with some mental abilities. They have feedback, which lets them regain lost health while damaging an enemy, kind of like you saw a Mentalist use earlier in the battle. So if you use them right, they can survive behind enemy lines for a little while, but they are not the hardiest units. We just used some bandages there to heal Leona, our swordsman, and we'll just continue moving. As you can see, using items is a free move. It does not do anything to hamper your ability to continue on your turn. I have a feeling Hal is probably going to respond to that by using feedback with his Mentalist. No, he's using Mind Blast. That was probably not the best move he could have done, although I have a feeling that Mentalist might be low on energy. That might be why she didn't use feedback. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, she only has 2 energy. That is why. So, oh man, more bandages. We can't reach the Spearman. That's unfortunate. Well, here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to move my swordsman right over here, so that there is some room for the Cavalier to come charging down the middle. Let's see, our Sprigget has 4 energy. Our Sprigget needs to rest. And for that matter, so does our Skier Kineticist. They're both really low on energy. We'll send our swordsman over here to help support this lizard man. And this should be wrapped up pretty soon. I have a feeling that Mentalist there is, yeah, she's a goner. Ho! Amazing. Yeah, I think that's all she wrote, folks. That Spearman is going to take 20 damage as soon as its turn starts. And that is that. Awesome. Well, folks, there you go. That gives you a taste of how multiplayer works. We got to see a whole bunch of different mechanics in the game. We didn't do certain things. We didn't get to see what happens when we trigger those explosive satchel charges sitting in the middle. We only got to see me use, I think, a single item, but there are literally over a dozen items in this game, and you can always mod in more. The game supports that. But I think this gives you a pretty good idea of where the game is at now. Multiplayer supports up to 6 players in free-for-all or team matches, and it is a ton of fun, folks. Highly, highly recommend it. It supports local multiplayer, too. Everyone's going crazy about that with Sports Friends getting funded. This also is a local multiplayer game, folks, so if you support local multiplayer, you should back this game, and you should encourage your friends to back this game. And yes, one thing I didn't mention before when I was doing the video on modding is the last thing I'm going to say, and then I will let you go. You can mod in new multiplayer maps as well. It's not just limited to single-player campaigns, right? The map editor is quite good for making multiplayer maps. I strongly recommend, if you get a hold of the map editor at the $50 tier, go give it a shot. Create some multiplayer maps, go wild, see what you can come up with. I don't know about you, but I have a ton of fun coming up with crazy multiplayer arenas for me to do battle in. Anyway, folks, that's all we have time for. Thanks so much for watching, and please, back the game, and tell your friends. See you next time.